Wow. It's been a year since I've actually reviewed this series. Hopefully, from here on out, I actually get these videos out more frequently. I have a really bad habit of starting, a new book when I'm reading other books, and as a result, it takes forever to get reviews done. I have books that I started in 2019 and I have not finished yet. Not because I'm not, you know, bored. I'm not bored with any of these books. It's a really bad habit of mine. Anyway, to the topic of the video, I am about halfway through the series at this point, and Crown of Swords, which is the seventh book of the Wheel of Time, and the first of what many fans would refer to as the slog. Those of you who are reading Wheel of Time now, after the series has concluded, are not going to even know what the slog is, but I'll just give it some quick rundown on the slog. The slog is something that fans that read the series, as it came out, was referring to after, the release of Lord of Chaos, though some people consider Lords of Chaos the start of the slog. I don't agree, but I will say this, you know, of Swords, I do see some differences in terms of plot progression. The plot has not progressed at as a nearly as fast as the previous books, and the story, at this point has gotten so big that majority of the storylines that actually begin in this novel, or some of them began actually in Lord of Chaos, end in cliffhangers. And if you were reading this in the 90s, this would be infuriating, considering people who read these books when they were coming out did not know if Robert Jordan would ever finish the series. This could be infuriating to people who are reading the books, after the series has concluded, considering these books are extremely long. But I'm going to have to give my own thoughts. What do I think of Crown of Swords? Do I think, it's as good as the other books in the series? Well, first let's start with the positives. I like the fact that this, book actually focuses on other characters. Because before, this book came out, the series didn't branch out that much when it came to point of view characters. It mostly focused on a few point of view characters. For the first book, you only had three basically point of view characters. The second book had, went from three to like five. And the third book, went through basically the same thing, but it changed things up where characters that didn't get point of view chapters as often got them. Now, whether you are fans of those characters is another story. But I did like, reading from the point of view of other characters. The world actually does expand greatly with this book. Now, unfortunately, this is another novel where my boy Perrin is not featured that much in. But I will say what the stuff that I do read with Perrin I think is solid. I'm biased. Perrin's my favorite character of the series. I think the villains of this series are interesting. And, well, in all honesty, despite not being as fast paced as the other books in the series, A Crown of Swords definitely does succeed in many retrospects. It greatly expands upon the world. It gives us more, information on how, what happens to somebody that runs away from the White Tower. It humanizes characters like Ran, who at this point is going crazy and has done things that would probably put him as in the anti-hero or villain, you know, route in any other story. The fact that Rand, is not the typical chosen one archetype is what makes this character interesting. Mat, who was never my favorite character in this series, I think it's a lot of great moments in this novel. Probably my favorite female character of the series, Min. She gets some good moments too. And well, in this novel is the novel where Rand and Min actually start their relationship. I know Rand technically falls in love with 3 women. I don't know how to feel about that. Honestly, I personally think Rand should stick to Min primarily. But that's just me, considering how much chemistry they have and how I think they work together, and it doesn't feel forced. Like Elaine and Alienda, which are good characters in their own right, but I think having them be in love with Rand, I don't know how to feel about that. I'll probably give my thoughts about that in later books. Nynaeve in this novel gets a great moment, towards the end of this book, because throughout the series, Nynaeve cannot control her power without getting angry, and she was unwilling to surrender herself to the One Power, the female half of the One Power, and for the first time, she's able to use, her power without getting angry, because she finally accepts, the One Power and stop fighting the female half of it. Now, there's other things I could say that are good about this novel too. We learn more about the history of the White Tower, the Black Aja. We even learn that one of the people that are the second in command of the Amyrlin seat of the White Tower is working for the Forsaken. I mean, there's other stuff I could say. I mean, the final chapter was pretty brutal, and Rand finally, basically giving in to his temptations is interesting, to say the least, because he's supposed to be the main, protagonist, and he's supposed to be the hero, and seeing him do selfish things and morally questionable things makes this character interesting. Even though, it's not as satisfying as the other novels in terms of its, conclusion, and the fact that there isn't as much plot progression compared to Lord of Chaos, I still would consider this a worthwhile read. Now, I'm not going to tell you to read this, because if you're watching this review, I assume that you have read the other 6 books before it, and probably this one as well, and you just want to hear my opinion about it. I think Crown of Swords, I'd give it a classic rating, despite the fact it's not as good as Lord of Chaos, or Fires of Heaven, or Shadows Rising, which I think those 3 books are the best of the series. I still think Crown of Swords is definitely something that I'm probably going to enjoy, probably with rereads. Anyway, this is Darth Sinovia, over and out. The next book in the series, Path of Daggers, will not take as long as the previous books. And yes, I will eventually review Wall of Ascension. I've put it off long enough. This is Darth Sinovia, over and out. May we live long and prosper. Thank you.